Anyway, so I approached one of them one time. It's this guy, Wolfy, funny guy. And I said to him, hey man, like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And I was like, what is that? It sounds like a weird breed of dog, of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I was like, you just made that shit up? And
hello, friends. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Mayn Idea Podcast, where today I have the pleasure of sitting down with James Tomlinson. A quick reminder for those that enjoy this podcast, please leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and subscribe to the YouTube channel. This helps the show get discovered organically and helps me continue to bring on amazing guests. Also, there are now timestamps in the show notes, so feel free to jump around to the part that interests you most, although I always recommend listening to the episode in its entirety. James Tomlinson is a Jiu Jitsu black belt under Lachlan Giles, author of JiuGo children's book series, JiuGo card game, and holds a black belt in Taekwondo. Recently, James launched the Bulletproof For BJJ app, which aims to help Jiu Jitsu players of all levels care for their body, improve their mobility, and build strength in order to spend more days on the mats. I hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Without further ado, James Tomlinson. So I'm stoked to yet again have another Aussie on the podcast. It's insane coordinating the fact that you're actually in tomorrow and I'm in yesterday, but somehow we're here. We made it happen. So thank you so much, James, for taking the time to be on the show, man.
time travel, my friend. We made it happen. Technology. It's a miracle.
It's insane. And we're using like some tech, but not all, and we're still making it work. But I wanted to jump into something that stuck out. I think a lot of people that are listening to this episode are going to be curious about the strength and conditioning components. One of the big reasons why I wanted to have you guys on. I love what you guys are doing at Bulletproof for BJJ, and I think you take a lot of complex principles, but you deliver them in ways that people can digest them and understand them. And I'm a huge proponent of strength and conditioning, recovery, wellness, making it all a holistic approach. And I was drumming through your guys' Instagram the other day, and I see you 178 kilo back squat, barefoot.
Yeah.
And that's a ton of weight for people that are not yet doing the calculations. 374 pounds. And you're how much do you weigh in kilos?
Right now, I just dropped a bunch of weight. No. I got quite heavy. I'm usually sit around 90 kilos.
Right. So that's that's a feat, right? That puts you in upper percentages of people around the world that are lifting because of how much you're lifting relative to your body weight. And I think it's something that you probably, if you pulled most people off the mats, they're not going to be, one, doing that, or two, doing it without shoes on. So I love the benefits, and for years, of not lifting with shoes, and could go on and on for days about the physiology behind it. But why no shoes for you?
Okay, well, see, the thing is, I started martial arts when I was very young. I started doing Taekwondo when I was like 10 years old. And so much of what we did was, we just barefoot. You couldn't wear shoes in the training hall, And yeah, since a real young age, did a lot of training without shoes on. And then Taekwondo brought in shoes as a equipment requirement.
Fashion.
Whatever. Anyway, long story short, I had always thought it strange that we do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and we don't wear shoes. And I had read an article many, many years ago relating to muscle recruitment in calf muscles, hamstrings, and quads relevant to people being barefoot versus people wearing shoes. And it showed that people who trained barefoot had like a ridiculous, it was like 40% increase in muscle recruitment in calf, hamstring, and quad. And so basically the end conclusion was, if you want greater muscle recruitment, train barefoot. So I was like, okay, why not? That makes perfect sense. So from then, that's what I did. But then also, I did a lot of training with my mentor, and he was a trainer in the Russian military back in the day, actually in the 80s. he was fighting the Americans.
Nice.
But anyway, he's He's an interesting
We'll let it
guy.
slide this time.
We'll let it slide.
Yeah.
He's a converted Australian now. No, it's interesting, man. And he was talking about a lot of different training they did and how many problems they got with their Achilles from being in army boots. So it was really important that they did significant warm-ups before they did pack marches and running through the snow and stuff. So they would actually do a lot of foot prep stuff before they put their boots on and put their socks on. And he really drummed that into me. So when I started to learn the relationship between like ankles and feet and what that does to your squat, I then became much more aware of not wearing shoes. Because I used to be classic kind of gym fitness dude, like wearing runners and all this stuff because I wanted to run a marathon or some nonsense. And I did run a marathon. But what I realized was when I started to run more, my Achilles got tighter and my squat got worse. My squat went backwards.
Yeah.
And then what I thought about and what I came to realize is that you can get incredibly fit without running. Like I used to think, oh, running is the best for fitness. But really, then when you look at people who do gear of voice sport, like kettlebell sport, like it's just like ultra endurance kettlebell lifting, these guys don't run anywhere. And they have some of the strongest and most enduring backs, shoulders, forearms, legs ever. And they're basically standing on the spot. And so this really boggled my mind until I started to get into it and start to understand it better. And a good friend of mine, James Ross, he's a master of sport. He's also like a Girevoy sport world champion. He's
competitive kettlebell.
He's probably the best Australian
and that's like
lifter.
Competitive, the Girevoy competition. That's like that more unique kind of like dipping kettlebell.
They clean and jerk. They snatch. They do a couple of other lifts. But they just stay on the platform.
Yeah.
It's the most weight and reps you can do in 10 minutes. It's incredibly
That's like completely brutal. Anabolic.
Oh, it's so savage.
Yeah.
But essentially, his Russian trainer had said to him, okay, well, how many times can you squat your body weight? And this guy, I forget his name, he has the world record. He can squat his body weight like 3,000 times or something crazy. But he was like, instead of running 10Ks, squat your body weight 1,000 times.
We did this one day. We did
crazy.
How many? If you could squat your body weight 50 times unbroken, like loaded up on because it's a great test because it's scalable to anyone, right? You could be a big ass dude or you could be a little twig guy. Doesn't matter. You just load up your body weight and go break parallel every rep. Yeah. Cardiovascularly, it destroys you, dude.
Incredible.
Wrecks you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoy this podcast and the guests that I have on, you can support it by checking out my amazing sponsor, Athletic Greens. I started taking Athletic Greens because I've always been a firm believer that health starts on the cellular level. From my competitive years as an athlete to my weekly output of jiu-jitsu, surfing, and strength training, cellular nutrition is a non-negotiable since I need every leg up I can manage. That's why I won't skip on ingredients or quality when I start my day with pure AG1. Plus, AG1 contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, and it honestly tastes good, while all costing less than $3 a day. Look, if you put in the work, you need to reward your body. So, to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Abe. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/ABE to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Yeah. And you're completely done. Your body's shaking just from being under the load. It's really interesting how that breaks down.
Look, I look at it this way, because most people don't have a good understanding. And, I'm not a sports scientist. When I was at university, I was actually studying education, but I'm a nerd. So I read crazy and I'm obsessed. And I've been in the health and fitness industry 22 years. So I've been in the gym since I was 12 years old. So I've been reading nonstop and applying these things, going to seminars, asking people smarter than myself, and really trying to get to the heart of what works. Yeah. And the funny thing is, people don't really understand energy systems, and they also don't really understand adaptive stress. So even though you might be really good at a particular kind of stress, like running, that's totally different to sprawling and shooting. entirely different.
Yeah, wrestling is a monster too.
And this, we're not even talking against a person. We're just, when you
Right.
kind of shadow, I don't know if you've done this, where the coach is like, sprawl.
Yeah,
shoot.
or you do like knee drives, single legs.
Yeah,
entries.
and you just kind of you're shadow wrestling, and then the coach will just sprawl, shoot, and you got to just boom, boom. This is so different. And so when I came to jiu-jitsu, what I found was people were not training their body properly, and this is obviously like 15 years ago,
if at all.
Yeah. But then also when I look around the gym and I do see people trying, credit to them for trying, it's also just fuckery. It's just people are
blame
doing
Instagram
dumb things, and you can't even blame Instagram. People are trying, right? People don't know what they don't know. But I was always taught that you should try and go for full range, like A to G, right? Ass to grass. But with pauses, my coach would always make me pause at the weakest point in my squat, because that's where I had to get stronger. Right. And for me, that's right around 90. It's actually not quite.
Yeah, you're more comfortable. A lot of good jiu-jitsu play, like good guard players, you're more comfortable with your quads like driven into your chest, where you're in the hangout mode. But that mid-range, it's brutal.
It's super tough. So if I'm doing, I think the squat you're referring to, I was doing pause squats, and people give me a lot of stick because I wasn't going full range, and I was like, well, I get it.
It's not even worth like entering that conversation with someone when they're fighting at you about that. It's like,
I don't mind, man. Like, I'm accountable, right? But I know that I can squat 170 kilos A to G. But what's harder is to take it to 90 or just thereabouts and stay there for 5 seconds. That's totally different.
Is all of you on a personal level, like if you're in the gym, and now we're jumping around a little bit, but hey, is a lot of your training specific to jiu-jitsu, or do you find your like love for being in the gym and like just lifting and getting stronger as something kind of separate? Because like squatting, for example, 374 pounds is probably well in excess of the strength you would need to be proficient on the mats, right?
Yeah, no. For me, it's different. It's different. I'm trying to be a superhuman, man.
Right.
Like,
That's
I'm not comparing with jiu-jitsu people, man. Jiu-jitsu people are not strong. Like, okay,
they're effective.
We've got power lifters and we've got strongmen getting into jiu-jitsu. Okay, good for you. Clap, clap. And I mean, even a guy like Gordon Ryan, I don't even think he's athletically that strong. Is he strong to roll? Of course.
Right.
But where are the videos of him lifting 3 times the body weight?
I don't think he does. I don't think he does.
Doesn't, of course.
But it would also, for him, it's not like risk reward is fucked up for him there.
No, I don't even think that's risk reward. I just think it's because he doesn't need to do it. He's not going to do it. Right. But the thing for me is I'm trying to be a superhuman. I'm trying to set the example here. I don't give a fuck about Gordon Ryan. I'm talking about being as physically strong as I can be. And that's well beyond what jiu-jitsu requires. The juggle for me is to get insanely strong, but also be really flexible. And that's the tough part.
Yeah.
Because if I got really strong and then immobile, that would be
worthless.
Acute irony, because then I'd lose my function. Because what we're all about at Bulletproof is being strong and also being flexible, mobile, right? So what I'm trying to do is push the boundaries on how strong can you get, but also still have like a really high degree of mobility and physical capability.
How do you know when you're in that ballpark?
At the moment, I'm probably pushing the line towards strength. Like I haven't been doing probably as much mobility, but I'm kind of swinging back now. I know that, like, so I think about it this way. A good friend of mine, Martin Gonzalez, he's a coach from a gym called Vanguard down in Victoria in Melbourne. Shout out to Marty. He had once said to me, because I said to him, do you know, well, I was probably purple belt at the time. He's a brown belt. I said, do you know when to work on your top game versus your bottom game? And he said, okay, imagine you're in a video game and it's your top game versus your bottom game. Like, who wins that fight? And I was like, oh, my guard game kills my top game. Like the top game guy would get murked. And he's like, well, you know what you need to work on now.
That's a really good way of thinking about it, actually.
I was like, dang. I was like, that was so insightful. This is the thing about Marty. He's a gem. Like he's one of the smartest guys, but you never heard of him. And so straight away I was like,
who were the other people like that when you were? So you had a Taekwondo background. When you were getting into jiu-jitsu, who were like your initial mentors or people you were exposed to?
Look, man, when I started jiu-jitsu, it was there wasn't that many academies in Australia, but I was pretty fortunate. I started my jiu-jitsu journey in Melbourne, in Victoria, and this is like Victoria was the home of two guys who are very kind of preeminent in Australian jiu-jitsu, or they were, which is a guy called Peter Devine and another guy called John Will. So Peter Devine was under Carlos Gracie Jr. and John Will went under the Machados. And they started out together, but they went their separate ways. And there's different stories behind that. But essentially, Peter Devine got his blue belt from Carlinhos, and he was told, go set up the Australian Federation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and get it going in Australia. And I think, because Pete was just purely on the jiu-jitsu path, whereas I think from my understanding of speaking with John directly, John Will, he was going down more a Shudo fight path kind of thing. And also for different reasons, he chose to kind of go to the States and pursue and associate with the Machados. And he has his own federation here and all of that. So they really set the the foundation for jiu-jitsu, at least in Victoria. And there's far more density of clubs and black belts and everyone in Victoria, even though there is a scene in Sydney. And John Will did set up gyms in Sydney, and many Brazilians came to Sydney and set up their gyms. For me, in terms of understanding jiu-jitsu, do you mean like at what stage in my belt? Like what influenced my jiu-jitsu?
Maybe like kind of as you were into like the latter part of your white belt or blue belt. Look,
it was Gracie Mag days, right? I actually went to Brazil in 2009. It was my first year. I started 2008. And within a year, I'm like, right, I'm going to go to Brazil. And I went and I trained at Connection Rio with Dennis Aish. And I trained at Gordo Jiu-Jitsu in Barra de Tijuca. Yeah. And I actually won the Rio Open that year as a white belt.
Wow.
So that was cool. That was
nice. Hell yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, dude, it blew my mind. It really made me believe. But I guess the advantage I had was I had 15 years of Taekwondo and trying to be an Olympic athlete and also training kettlebells and being insanely competitive and wanting to kill everybody. So having that and being 25 years old, 26 years old, being like a fully grown man, in the final, I fought a 16-year-old kid from Gracie Barra. Like,
he murdered him.
Dude,
dude, that's so funny. The parallels, my entire childhood was I wanted to go to the Olympics. That's it. And I'm not going to beat this dead horse because people are sick of listening to it. But that's all I cared about doing, dude. That's it. I woke up, I thought about the Olympics. I went to bed, I thought about the Olympics. Yeah. And I've been in a weight room since I was 14. I love training. I don't know what the hell it was, but my dad, I had chest surgery when I was 16. My dad bought a Bowflex. You remember the Bowflex? Bro. Yeah. And I hit that thing. I was super self-conscious about my chest because it was all caved in. I had all this shit. And I would just hit this Bowflex every day. Every day. I would forego hanging out with my friends to stay home and do this because I just had to get it done. It was this thing. I had to do it. And I was 15 and it was something about that. I just got addicted. I got addicted to training for athletics. And when you do that, you care about keeping yourself healthy. You care about your recovery. You care about your performance. I just wish jiu-jitsu, I feel so late. There's part of me that this low self-esteem parts, you're so lame, dude. You show up to the party coming out of a competitive weightlifting and competitive skiing. And I love jiu-jitsu. It's a huge part of my life. But I feel like someone like you were in jiu-jitsu at such this incredible time when it was growing, but it was still close to its origins.
Yeah.
And I guess feel so far from that.
Oh, no, man. I think it's different for everyone, right? Because one of my coaches, one of the guys who's probably had the biggest influence on me is a guy called Dan Cherubin. So Dan Cherubin, he is a black belt under Peter Devine, but he actually was under Master Ricardo De La Riva for a while. and he has an amazing game. He actually fought Roger Gracie back in the day as a blue belt and almost beat him at the Brasileiro.
Damn.
Yeah, dude.
Was that a decision loss or?
Dude, 1998, 2 points, I think. Dan was actually winning. This is crazy. He's got a photo with him and Hodger, I think, as blue belts. Yeah. He's 16, and Hodger's like 17. I can't remember if it's a Brasileiro or it's actually the Mundial in Brazil.
Dude, did you think you were getting murdered when you won? Were you like, I gotta get the hell out of here?
Nah, man, I was ready to murder, bro. Like, I was there at Tijuca Tennis Club, like, come at me, bro. Like, I was there to kill. Because you don't understand, I was getting bashed, bro. At Gordo Jiu-Jitsu, I was getting murked. I'd never been bashed. So
back home. That's in Melbourne.
No. In Brazil, we were training at Gordo Jiu-Jitsu.
To get ready for the tournament.
Get ready. We were there for a month before the tournament. And I was getting bashed every day. And I didn't understand if it was because I was a gringo or maybe I was bringing too much heat to senior belts. Yeah. And look, Braga Neto was there. Kira Gracie was training there. RDA was training there. There's a great guy called Zorro. He was training there. I think Neyman Gracie. Yeah. Like a bunch of Gracies who used to train at Gracie Barra were now training at Gordo's. And they had a savage team on a tiny mat. Like the smallest mat I've ever trained on. And there's 20 dudes on there killing each other. Like 10 pairs of people committing murder, and it was so brutal. So then when I came to the tournament and everyone's screaming and yelling, it didn't bother me. And when I saw the medals, dude, because it's got Jesus, it's got the Christ de Sel, it's got the Jesus, and it's got Rio underneath, and I saw the black belt medals, and they're like something Fat Joe would wear, It's bruh. I was like, I want one of those. So all my repressed 15 years of not making the fucking Olympics was like, I'm going to kill somebody. And I pretty much had the same game. I played the same game. I pull close guard, flower sweep, armbar, or if I can't do it, I armbar from close guard. And I had them strong in the thighs from Taekwondo, bro. So
as a competitor, did you always go in with a game plan even in your like earlier belts?
Oh, I didn't. I think limited ability kind of focused me because I only knew close guard,
like
flower sweep, armbar. Yeah. That was the strategy. And then in the final, this young kid from Gracie Barra, he pulled close guard on me. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know how to pass guard. I don't know what to do. So I just used my base. Like I had really good base and I just fought really hard. And after a couple of minutes, I think he got a bit tired and I opened the guard and he just died and I passed. And I was like, oh, and I just armbarred the shit out of him. So
you were trying to snap the elbow.
Yeah, he's pretty young and flexible, so I'm pretty sure he was just fine.
What else was going on in your life at that time? Like why jiu-jitsu? What hooked you on jiu-jitsu? What kept you around? So many people. Man. Even in my short time as, a purple belt, I've seen so many people start, stop, quit, leave, get hurt once, not learn how to correct themselves, not learn how to take care of themselves. It's crazy.
Everybody's different, man. Look, I am obsessive. And, I think the thing for me was I always felt like being the best at an athletic pursuit would make you significant. Like, especially in Australia, we really value sports. Like, sports people, no one really cares what the Prime Minister says. But if Ian Thorpe or Leighton Hewitt or whoever our sports person of the time is, whoever's our big champion, if they say something, well, everybody's paying attention. Do you know what I mean? Like, right. I guess, don't get me wrong, I know very little, full disclosure about American politics. I keep a bit of an eye on it. But obviously, if Tom Brady says something, people fucking listen, right? Because, right. I don't want to speak out of turn, but from what I understand, he is the GOAT. You can't really argue.
He's widely respected, love him or hate him, if he's on your team or not. Like, you got to respect. You got to respect him because he's so damn good.
and I don't want to say anything that's going to upset sports fans because they're like, this Australian, he doesn't know shit about NFL, but which I don't.
This will be good for TikTok, right? Just
sure. Stupid Australian says something stupid. No, I think honestly, I felt like when I was younger, I wanted to be a politician, and then I realized politicians are very compromised and they don't speak the truth and they don't look out for the people. So then I was like, man, fuck politicians. So I was like, yo, how can I be significant? Like, how can I influence people and how can I help people? And I thought that sports people were the number one influencers. So then I was like, oh, I want to be a great champion because then people will listen to me. But then what I realized is it's a very defined subset of people, especially when it comes to martial arts. Like, I think martial arts meant a lot to my life, but then I didn't realize that it wasn't mainstream and all of that. And it was there
like regret around that? Was it like, oh, bummer, I chose this and it's not a big deal kind of thing?
No, I don't think so, because it changed my whole life. You know, I was like a very undisciplined, fat little kid. My life, if I hadn't found martial arts, my life would have been totally different. So I'm very grateful to have found martial arts. You know, even though Taekwondo is its own thing, at least it put me on this path towards athletics and self-development. It got me in the gym. And look, dude, I think I'm trying to circle back around to what you were saying there, your original question. Essentially, I think the need for me to want to be competitive and be really great at something drove me. And that's why I have stuck at jiu-jitsu. But not just because I was like, oh, I want to be the best. I think the thing I realized is, like, coming out of Taekwondo, I didn't achieve my goal. Like, I didn't make the Olympics. Even though I was national champion and I did fight internationally, I competed at 3 international events. I wasn't successful in getting on the podium, even though I did win fights and I got to fight the world champion, which was great as an experience. Ultimately, I got short legs, bro. I got like...
Yeah, you're not...
Dude, I am not...
It's like a limb length battle, right? It's I kick your head or not?
Dude, the world champion at that time was a guy called Rosendo Alonso. This is back in 2007.
You have a torso like this big and legs.
6'6", bro.
Yeah.
He was fighting under 77 kilos.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to...
How is that physically possible? So when he lifted his leg to his waist height, that was my head height.
I don't know enough about the scoring of. I can see the sport in my head and assume that it's point-based kicking, and there's got to be some weird rules around that.
Look, at a high level, it's pretty brutal. Like, yeah, you can get knocked out. You get kicked hard enough, you can break a rib, break your knee, do whatever. The rules have evolved over time, which have made it, I don't know, in my opinion, not as good, even though they've included more punching, because now they have sensors in the pads. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The things I got from Taekwondo is how to be a professional athlete. That's what my coach taught me. That's what my involvement with the Australia team taught me. That's what I learned from many, many great S&C coaches, is how to optimize for performance as an athlete. Yeah. So I had at least 10 years of that drummed into me. How much sleep you get, how much water you drink, all these things. So I was trained to be a professional athlete. I came to jiu-jitsu, like, I didn't make it. So I'll be honest, I think I was probably depressed, even though I didn't identify it at the time. Yeah. I quit my job. I broke up with my long-term partner. I just, I quit Taekwondo. I never went back. And I just kind of stayed in my apartment for like 6 months. Anyway, I didn't tell this to my family. I was struggling. Like, I just didn't feel good about anything. Yeah. Nothing made me feel good because I just didn't achieve my dream. I'm 25 years old and I'm thinking, my life's over.
Right.
But
drama.
In truth, I moved to St Kilda. The plan was to move to St Kilda, which is kind of like it's a tourist spot in Melbourne. Now, it has a beach. It's not really a real beach. You can't surf there, but it's nice enough, right? But this is the home of Peter DeBean Jiu-Jitsu. So when I was walking around, I started to get out the house and go for walks and stuff. And it was kind of 6 months after I'd quit. And so we're like February, March of 2008. And I started seeing dudes with all these weird colored gis, like red and black and blue. And I was like, what? is this? Because we only got to wear white kind of kimonos, whatever, for Taekwondo.
Yeah.
And if you're very lucky and you're a black belt, you could have like a black lapel or whatever. You weren't allowed to have multiple color gis. So when I started seeing these guys, I saw, and they're all kind of weird looking dudes, like odd shaped dudes. Some of them were huge, some of them were fat. I was like, this seems strange to me, because Taekwondo dudes were generally like slim, thin, fit kind of cats. In sports Taekwondo, at least. Anyway, so I approached one of them one time. It's this guy, Wolfy, funny guy. And I said to him, hey man, like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And I was like, what is that? It sounds like a weird breed of dog, of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I was like, you just made that shit up? Yeah. And he was like, nah, man, no, it's a thing. Like, he was like, you should, yeah, go up there, man. Go find out what's going on. And so one day I did go in. I walked upstairs to the Peter DeBean Academy, and actually this is the first day. So there's a guy. His name is Mick Wilson, Big Mick Wilson. He's possibly one of Australia's best ever competitors. He's retired now.
For jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. You can Google him, man. He's amazing. But he's 6'6". He's about 120 kilos, ripped. He's a fireman. He's fucking jacked, dude. He'd literally just finished training. So I don't know if you had that where you finish training, you take off your gi and you're steaming.
Yeah.
So I literally walked up the stairs. Now Mick is there with his big bowl of broccoli, chicken, and like capsicum. And this man can eat. I'm telling you, like he eats like he's just.
Was he like? I feel silly for not knowing who he is. Was he like a jack dude or like a big boy?
No. He was ripped, like ultra jacked, ultra ripped.
Gotcha.
Like, think Rafael Lovato Jr., but better looking and more jacked. Yeah, that's right. I said it, Rafael. Actually, there's one time, very funny story. I was there. Someone mistook Rafael for Big Mick and said, oh, hey, are you Big Mick from Australia? He's like, I'm Rafael Lovato Jr. Like, he got really upset. I was like, bro, that's a compliment. He's very attractive.
Yeah.
And then Mick had the same thing. Someone thought he was Rafael. It's really funny. At the same Worlds. It was like 2011 or something. Anyway, so I walk in. Big Mick has got his gi off. He's pumped. And he's just standing there eating fucking broccoli and chicken and shit. I walked in. He was steaming. I was like, what is this? I walked in. He was like, hello. He's this huge guy. Like, shook my hand like this. I was like, oh. And anyway, Peter.
This is the best. This is the best jiu-jitsu origin story I've heard.
Right. But no. Because how's me, right? I went up there just to find out.
Right.
Pete's there. Now, Pete is a legendary figure in jiu-jitsu, similar kind of love him or hate him kind of cat. And he's got a very funny way about him. So he's there, and I said, okay, what is this? He's like, g'day. Yeah, this is Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I was like, okay. I just look around, dudes just rolling, just massacring each other. And I said, okay, well, what is it? You know, it's like when you're a kid. Like, you know, you ever wrestle your brothers? And I was like, I didn't have brothers, mate. I had sisters. And he's like, like, it's like fighting, but you can't kick and you can't punch. And I was like, that's all I got, bro.
Yeah.
Like, how is it fighting if you can't kick and you can't punch? Like, that's what I do. And he was like, nah, go and get in there. And I was like, what? He's like, take your shoes off, go and get in there. And I was like, I kind of didn't want to bitch out, but I also was like, what?
Yeah, you're like, I don't even know what I'm looking at here.
Man, I don't even know, because it was a line drill. It was literally just like, I think it was like pass or submit.
Yeah.
Type thing. And so, look, I'm someone who's come from like, you bow, walk in, like it's all formal. This was so sideways, so informal. Anyway, long story short, I was like, man, fuck it. Let's go. You got to jump in to swim. So,
and at this time though, you're athletic. You've been competing at a high level. You're not like some chump off the street.
I'm in shape.
Yeah, you're ready to go.
I'm in Olympic
and you
level
got
shape.
You're a fighter upstairs.
Yeah, I used to fight as a teenager as well. Like, I'm down to bang.
Surprise.
Let's fucking
not
go,
surprised.
Right? Dude, I got submitted more than 60 times in a very like, it was
yeah,
like tap, and it just kept putting me on the line, and I was like, the fuck is going on? He's like, look, if you get scared or if you're in pain, just tap. And I'm like, I didn't even get a chance. It's like, you know, when someone else like wrist locks you and you're like, ah.
Yeah.
It was like that, man. Like I was getting absolutely chewed up. It was just absolute gang bash. And at the end of it, the timer went, and I was just mad. I was so like humiliated and frustrated and just annoyed. I was like, man, I was fuming. And Pete goes, "Did you love it? Did you love it?" I was like, "No, I didn't fucking love it. Fucking hated that. You didn't teach me anything. I just got bashed for half an hour, 40 minutes. Like, what is this bullshit?" He's like, come back. We'll teach you. And I was like, man, fuck this shit. I just stormed out, you know, like for 2 weeks, I didn't go back. I was so mad. I was just walking around with like, just a hole, but like burning in my brain. Like, fuck jiu-jitsu. I fucking hate jiu-jitsu. And then I just hit this point of being like, I got to learn this, you know, like I can't have spent 15 years doing Taekwondo, but I also trained a bit of kickboxing, thinking like I knew how to fight. And then I just got owned so completely.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, I think the date in my head is like March 22nd, 2008. I walked in there and I said, "Give me a gi. Let's fucking go." And it's pretty much been nonstop ever since.
So I got a question about this, because people who've listened before know, people who are listening for the first time don't know. My experience was almost identical.
Okay.
And I found that a lot of people had the similar thing. Like, I went to Fabricio Werdum's gym in Venice in LA. I walked in there on a trial class on like a Groupon, like at a discount.
Okay.
Did the entry, break, fall, roll. This is an arm bar. This is a wrist lock. Just kind of the regular stuff. And at the end, this guy named Lalo, who's like 4.5 feet tall, he's like, "Hey, bro, you look pretty athletic. You want to stick around and spar?" And I was like, "Do I want to?" I was like, "That's what the fuck I came here for, like that's why I went."
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Sure, whatever." And I was like, I've watched UFC my whole life, but I had never been on the mats with someone. I had never actually had the green light to go as hard as I want, right?
Yeah.
So he sits down and he's like, "All right, so rounds are 5 minutes. If you get caught in a spot you don't like, just tap." And in my head, I was like, "I'm never going to do that, so don't even need to know about that." And I was like, "What do I do?" Because I knew I couldn't strike him. And he's like, "Well, just try to submit me. Chokes. He kind of said the same thing. Like, think of things that, when you were wrestling with your friends, like full Nelson, head choke, whatever." And I was like, "Okay." And in my head, I'm like, does this guy need to sign a waiver? Like, I'm like, this is about to be a problem.
In for?
Dude, 20 minutes, 15 minutes straight of just like tap, 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 sweaty, tap, tired, forearms are blown up, shoulders are blown up, neck's blown up. And at the end of it, I was like, "Thank you so much." And I walked out of there and I was like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
That was some crazy, like, witchcraft shit that I have never, like, what the hell? Because I was competing in Olympic weightlifting, snatching 1.5 times my body weight, all the metrics in my head of performance that I thought were important, 100 snatches in 5 minutes with kettlebells, whatever thing that could be done, I could do it at the time. And this dude just washer machined me.
Yeah.
So my question on all this stuff, what do you think it is about people that have that experience like you and I had, and then go, for whatever reason, I have to know more about this? And why do other people get their toes in and go, absolutely not, this is insane? Like, what is that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of psychological factors coming into this. I was a bullied kid, right? So I got beat down a lot as a child. I didn't know how to defend myself. But what I was pretty good for was taking a beating. I got good pain tolerance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I can eat a punch. Yeah. You could kick me and break my ribs, I'll still stand up. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, but I guess what I had learnt from a young age from doing Taekwondo and having the more traditional sitting in horse stance for half an hour, or doing 1,000 push-ups or 1,000 squats or some nonsense thing that they come up with to condition you, which isn't necessarily founded in science. It's just kind of a little bit more mental toughness. These things had taught me, but hard is good. Like, doing something difficult is good for you. Not necessarily like, it builds your body the right way, more that you teach your mind to endure difficulty, and you are okay on the other side of that, wrongly or rightly, because you're not always okay on the other side of it. So this is really kind of drummed into me pretty young from traditional martial arts, and then from training really, really hard in a competitive environment where it's similar to, I guess, it's good because it's similar to, what something like Khabib says, like, well, like, oh, you want to be champion? Cool. Come, train. You don't? Okay, go home. Who cares? You will not be champion.
Right, yeah, no one gives a shit.
You want to be the best, you do whatever the fuck it takes. And that's all. That's whatever it takes. So when someone says, you got to do 10 more, you go, okay, I guess we're doing 10 more. And it doesn't matter about what your brain telling you. And I think and I'm not saying this is great, because this is the psychology of being a psychopath, basically. You're trying to override, which is true, right? If you want to be a black belt in Taekwondo, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're basically a psychopath. Because you've had to overcome so many emotional and psychological triggers and stages where you've just go about, no, it's okay. Even though everything is saying, this is not okay, this is not okay.
Yeah.
Your ligaments are snapping, your neck is breaking. You're like, no, it's okay. I can get out of this. I can work through this. Like, you are basically trying to rationalize physical damage as well as personal threat to achieve an outcome, right? It's almost like an SAS soldier. Like, oh, okay, my arm got blown off, but I can keep running because I have a mission to complete, right? Yeah. You are conditioning yourself to not react emotionally to things that you should maybe react emotionally to. So I already had a large degree of conditioning from really hard training. So when I found this new thing, which I guess the thing that got me going was it was such a big body of knowledge I didn't understand. So because I'm a nerd, it fascinated me because I was like, yo, this is some next level knowledge. So clearly there's something to learn here. It wasn't just the physicality of it. I did like the physicality of it because I like to, I'm into what we call in Australia biff. Like I'm down to bang. Like, you want to hit me in the face? Cool, let's go. I'll hit you back. Like, let's have a party. Just depends on
Aussie thing, dude. I've never like all my
Aussie thing, man.
All my buddies, no, dude. All my buddies that I've ever met from like Australia, they are so game.
Nah.
Just
no. That's
baseline.
That's just Australian stupidity. That's not. I don't think it's toughness. But we do like to think it's an old school Aussie thing about toughness, but it's not real. Because the best part, Australians are just as fat and as stupid as anyone else in the world. But we do have some tough people as well. So I think for me, my personal code, like I try to, even though I'm not always there, I try my best to align my philosophies and my attitude towards more of like a stoic philosophy, more of a, like, how can I say, like, seek adversity is really my motto. So if you're not doing the hard thing, you're not really challenging yourself. And I always like to challenge myself because I want to impress myself. Now, if you're easily impressed with yourself, then okay, happy days. You're a content person. Right. You're not my kind of person. Like, I think a little bit of, and I'm not saying being insecure is cool, it's not, but if you can take whatever drives you and use it, that's fantastic. And for me, I always wanted to be the best. So now it's not about being the best amongst everyone else. It's about being my best. And jiu-jitsu is really about being your best. So even though you might put it in a competitive frame of like, yo, how can I beat so-and-so? At the end of the day, for you to beat so-and-so, you have to be the best version of you, which means every day you must be continually working on improving what you do from a technical perspective, from an athletic perspective, and from a psychological perspective. And really, the strength of your psychology is one of the biggest factors. And I think that's really what I had is, you guys might be better than me right now, but as soon as I get my opportunity and I work on this, I'm coming for all of you. Like, that's kind of my mentality. It's, I guess, being someone who never played team sports really. Like I played basketball a little bit in high school, but because I did martial arts and I did weight training, it's very individual kind of sports.
Yeah.
You had to rely on yourself. And I learned that really in competitive sports, it's kind of like winner takes all. I don't know if you've ever heard of, we have a criminal here in Australia, very famous, a guy called Chopper Reed.
I've watched every single, hey, Chopper Reed, eh? My buddy and I, dude.
Chopper.
I'll just send randomly my buddy. I'll just send him a GIF of Quick Crete.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, "Hot the fuck up."
Yeah.
I fucking love that guy.
I met Chopper, dude.
I actually didn't. This is sidebar. I thought that was I thought he was just a character on YouTube.
No.
I thought he was totally fake. I'm like,
No.
This guy is so funny. And then I looked it up and I was like, what a legend.
Dude, frightening. I mean, it's funny, right? Because in Australia, we love criminals. Like, I don't know how it works in American culture, but in Australia, because we are basically a convict nation, right? We're a colony. We came, sorry, when I say we, I mean the English came and stole the land from the indigenous people and just planted everyone down here. They didn't
like
want.
Another country I know.
Like every country, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not going to get into it, but shout out to the indigenous people of this land who it belongs to, for real. But essentially, we love criminals. Ned Kelly, the Kelly gang, and fair enough. Like the police were racist against him because he was Irish, and completely stuffed his family over. So he's like, "Yo, we should make some armor and rob banks." Woo!
Right.
Good times. So, and it was legendary, right? And he was actually a really smart philosophical guy, but just bad times for him, And I'm not saying Chopper was a good guy, but he's another criminal underworld guy who we laud because he was charismatic and he had a sense of humor. And that's the thing about it in Australia. If you've got a sense of humor, you can get away with pretty much anything. Yeah. And Chopper was super wild, but the thing that he did, which allowed him, other than just being a complete psychopath, which he was, he attacked criminals and robbed drug dealers. So,
like Robin Hood.
Yeah, see, not Robin Hood. He wasn't doing it for the greater good. He was doing it for himself. But the police kind of
narcissistic Robin Hood.
The police kind of didn't mind because they're like, he's kind of fucking up the criminals who we don't like, so we kind of let him. Yes, Chief Keith, he's done himself a mischief. He's appeared to have stabbed himself 17 times in the neck.
He was like wow. I don't even remember how Chopper Reed came up here. How did...
Basically, I have the Chopper Reed mentality. So when Chopper was in jail and he heard that everybody in the jail wanted to kill him, he said to his little crew, like 3 guys, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to sneak out. I'm going to choke the guard out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flick the switch to lock everyone's cell. And then we're going to take the key and individually unlock the cells. And then I'm going to shank all of them in the spine, turn everyone in this ward fucking to jellyfish. All of them. And his whole gang were like, don't know about that, Chopper. He's like, nah, it'll work. And then they won't be able to kill me.
How did that story end?
Well, he's Jimmy Lachlan. He's guy in his gang. That is the guy who tries to kill him. If you watch the film,
yeah, I need to go back and watch this.
He stabs him. He goes, "Hang on, mate," and it's his own cellmate, his friend, his best mate. He's trying to stab him to death. He's going, "Oh, mate, it's a bit early in the morning for kung fu, isn't it?" And he's going, "Mate, if you keep stabbing me, you're going to kill me." And so he keeps trying to stab him, and Chopper's like, strong guy, and he's like, "Nah, mate, you got to stop stabbing me." Anyway, he kind of half bleeds out. He lives, but he does get stabbed, I think, like 16 times or something crazy.
Could he use jiu-jitsu or like basic knife defense?
No, Chopper's crazy, but that's the thing. I guess my mentality was very much like, I look around the room and I'm like, I'm going to kill everyone in this entire room. Like, I'm not the most technical, but I'm very capable. And my mentality is, I'm here to kill all of you. So
then how do you handle loss in competitive environments?
No, loss is loss. I'm never well. Like, hate it. Yeah. Like losing. I'm an obsessively competitive person, And I think for me, loss, obviously I would learn from it. I would analyze it, but I would never, I don't forgive a loss.
That's
Ever.
so interesting. I'm always curious when people have that approach, whatever.
No, for me, it's okay. Like, I guess I'm at peace with it because I'm at a point in my life where I don't measure my life success by wins and losses.
Yeah.
But I do remember everyone I've lost to, and I do remember how I lost. I've come away from that and tried to fix whatever insufficiencies there were in my jiu-jitsu. But in terms of like, it's strange to me. I guess in my life, I've probably attached too much emotion to the winning losing thing. But what this does is it gives me strong memories. When you, like, it's probably like anything, and I don't know if anyone out here listens, associates with this, but when you were a teenager, that's when it was fucking mad. Everything was hot when you were 17. The music was fucking mad. The art was mad. People were better. Life was better. The economy was better. This is all false. It's just you had way more hormones. You imbued everything with way more emotion, so the feeling is stronger. And that's why that time is so great to you. The problem for me is I either have too much testosterone or too many hormones going through my body that I tend to put too much emotion on so many things. But ultimately what this does for me is it gives me stronger memories. So when I put so much emotion on a loss, I don't forget it, which means all the things that happened are very strong to me. I can recall all my mistakes. So people might say, oh, that's bad, man. You need to let it go and separate from it emotionally. But essentially what it does is it means that it's much easier for me to reference and it's much clearer for me to make adjustments to improve. So I feel like my jiu-jitsu's improved a lot, even though I may be emotionally stunted.
Well, you can be emotionally completely unstable psychopath and make progress because you're aware of your mistakes. And I think that it kind of goes back to the mentality you were talking about before, where like you said, when you get to a black belt, you've endured so many opportunities or so many things where other people have gone, fuck it. Right?
Yeah,
like
same
you've been
people
slammed
have
on your
left.
head. Your neck, you can't look this way all the way. You can't look that way all the way. Your toes don't bend. Like there's so many things that happen, and losses are another expression of that. It's another thing where like you got your shit kicked in. How are you going to deal with it? What are you going to do about it, bud? Are you going to dwell and whine and quit?
I'm coming for you.
Right.
Just
Or are you
know
gonna,
that
or are
you're
you
on
gonna
the list.
study?
People, if you ever beat me, if you see my face, know that I will come for you one day.
Yeah, that's you talking to yourself in the mirror, getting psyched up to compete. But it gives you this opportunity to learn and get better.
Yeah.
I remember.
No, look, I don't think it's good. Like, look, I've come full circle on it because what I've realized is, like I said to you at the start, my major goal when I was younger was because I didn't feel powerful or I didn't feel like I have agency in my life. I thought that athletics was the way to be the guy or to be a person who could be powerful, but ultimately I did want to help people, right? That was a core thing. And so I made a decision a couple of years ago, man, when I'm being competitive, I'm an asshole. Like that is not the best expression of who I am. So essentially it was so important for me to tap into creativity, like, because I love art. I used to do graffiti when I was younger. I love design. I've written a kid's book. I've designed a jiu-jitsu card game. Like, I'm working, like, book 2 will be out this year. I've got a whole series of books going to come out. I'm working on the comic book. Like, when I do art and I do creativity and I collaborate, so like Bulletproof is collaboration between Joey and myself. Right. We were essentially doing the exact same thing in 2 different cities. He was in Sydney, I was in Melbourne, and we are almost like the same entity. It's kind of weird. People say, oh, yo, you guys are brothers. We're not, but we have way more in common than, like, I have more in common with Joey than Joey has with his actual brother, Right. Like, we are so similar in terms of how we think and do things. Even though we are very different people, we are so similar, it's kind of crazy. But I just said, look, in my head, I was like, yo, we knew each other peripherally, but I was like, we could compete or we could team up and this could be awesome, you know? And I look at it kind of like rappers, like coming together, like Outcast or something like that, like a great rap duo.
It's a very cool way of thinking of yourselves.
Well, I'm a middle-class white boy, so I'm trying to make it sound cooler than it is.
I'm like, that sounds great.
But it is, right? Because, well, I love rap music because I'm a rap nerd. And
I also appreciate Andre and like that was
Andre
a good
and Big
call.
Boy, bro. Yeah. Amazing. Look, I have to say,
fantastic duo.
I'd have to be Andre because I got that flair, and he can be Big Boy. He's more sensible, even though he hasn't got the cadence. Don't worry about it. Anyway, I digress. All I was going to say is I believe the best things in life happen in collaboration, and when I'm being creative, I'm at my happiest, and that's when I'm at my best as a human being. So I wanted to base my life around jiu-jitsu if I couldn't be the best in the world. So, for example, I look at a guy like Craig Jones, right? Craig and I, at one time, were at a parity at Purple Belt. Actually, there was a point in time where I was maybe a bit better than Craig, and then that switched, right? And then after there was that change in dynamic, I was never going to catch him, right? And that's fine.
Why?
I accept that. Oh, no. Craig was he was traveling and training a lot. And I had kind of not topped out, but I'd done my last big training trip back in 2014. I'd really badly injured my ankle, and I came back and I had no job. So
there we go.
I was not in a good position to kind of keep really pushing the training thing at that time. I was still training, but I couldn't train full time. I had to work. There was a bunch of stuff going on in my life. No excuses. What I'm saying is I still kept training. I still kept pushing because I was still training with Craig. He was training at Absolute. I witnessed his evolution. And look, I admire the way Craig looks at jiu-jitsu because he's incredibly analytical. He's a very smart guy, but he's also a jerk. So I don't admire him as a person. I don't want to be like Craig Jones. So the way I had to think about it was the two guys who I had to compete against mainly were Craig Jones and Ben Hodgkinson. And Ben Hodgkinson, his Instagram is Sandbagging Creonche. He's, Ben has been one of the best heavyweights from Australia for many years, even though he may not have fully realized his potential internationally. He's still a monster. He's still one of the hardest guys to deal with, right? Long story short, I looked at them. They're both assholes. And I thought, am I trying to be the bigger asshole? Like, is that what it takes? Like, if I'm on the podium and I'm trying to beat these guys, what else do they bring to the table?
Do you mean assholes in their character or in the way that they play jiu-jitsu?
I mean, I don't know who's the bigger fuckwit, Craig, Ben. Like, Craig has maybe better sense of humor. Ben is maybe a more genuine person. Like, I'm just going to sound like a hater, right? Because both of them are more achieved than me in jiu-jitsu. So I don't want it to come off the wrong way. But what I want to say is this. You got to separate the art from the artist. Those guys are really great at jiu-jitsu in their own way, right? And I thought to myself, okay, how am I going to contribute to jiu-jitsu? Is it going to be, JT, the world champion of jiu-jitsu, and that's how I contribute to jiu-jitsu? Or do I do creative things that help people get better through jiu-jitsu? Do I help them get stronger and fitter? Do I help get their kids involved in jiu-jitsu? Do I help them learn jiu-jitsu through a card game? Like, how can I use my creativity and my positivity to contribute to Brazilian jiu-jitsu culture? That's what I thought. And so that's what kind of took me away from really going harder and harder into being the kind of pro athlete.
So what was that like though for you? Because I mean, I'd only talking to you for a little bit. Like, it's very clear that you're driven, right? And I can only imagine as another like highly competitive person in sports, that had to just eat at you a little bit. That you were leaving, like, if you're right there with these two dudes. How hard is it? This is a couple
years ago. I mean, I'm not with them now, but it doesn't.
No. I mean, at the time, like, what's the conversation in your head? That's hard as an athlete to go like.
Yeah, man. Look, I think it's hard. I just think I can't undervalue the privilege I have to be born a first world white Australian. All the blessings I have, my education, everything in my life, right? I saw acute poverty in Brazil. I saw how hard people work for very little opportunity. And I thought, man, I am not doing enough with what I have. Ultimately, I want to help more people in the world of jiu-jitsu. What is the best way I can do that? Because contribution actually is more important to me than winning. So even though, don't get me wrong, I still want to kill Craig Jones. I still want to beat down Ben Hodgkinson. They know it too. When they see me, they know that, like, I respect them, but I want to fucking murk them, right? And they know that I've been lifting 140 kilo stones. They know, like, I'm not sleeping, man. I'm still doing sled pushes. I'm still doing 5 carries with 180 kilos in each hand. Like, I'm still a titan. I'm still coming to rip your fucking head off. But the way that I can find peace in all of this, because it may not happen, I may not get the opportunity, is I can look at all the people I've helped in jiu-jitsu to fix their injuries, give them some money to support them, like Bulletproof sponsors athletes. We do so many things to try and help more people stay in the game, feel better for longer. This is what it is. So I think the way I looked at it is, like, how am I going to be happy? I'm happy when I push myself, so I still push myself. I'm also happy when I help others. I guess the thing for me is, it's never really going to go away. Like, Joey actually asked me this the other day. He's like, oh man, when are you going to stop with all this crazy competitive bullshit? Like, because I'm thinking about doing strongman. I'm training strongman training right now, because the strongman has an under 90 kilo category. Yep. So
that's like rack carry, like the hex bar carry,
carries,
stones,
log press, stones.
Dude, I just had I don't know if I just had Chad Wesley Smith on here. I'm sure you guys know him. You guys have similar offerings in the space, but he used to do that stuff, like strongman competition. That shit's gnarly.
I just wish he did jiu-jitsu, Like, if he did jiu-jitsu, it would be cool, but he doesn't. So
he does.
He fucking, bruh. How long's he done jiu-jitsu for?
He's like he's a purple belt under.
Okay, cool.
Under, I don't remember.
Cool, man.
It's not my job to know. It's just my job to know that he's a purple belt.
It's cool. Yeah. No, he actually has a much better organized offering than we do. But whatever, bro. Like,
yeah, I'll let you know what. I'm just don't kill the messenger.
If you're a jiu-jitsu
guy,
I'll
let you two handle it.
He's not a jiu-jitsu guy.
Yeah. But he's strong man.
Yeah, he is a strongman, and I respect that. And like I said, there's so many strongmen and powerlifters getting into jiu-jitsu because now jiu-jitsu is the hot chick. She wasn't the hot chick 10 years ago because you're all just doing roids and lifting weights. Good for you.
Fast forward to James Tomlinson next
jiu-jitsu
year.
Guys are all just doing roids and doing weights.
I'm like, yo, James, how you doing? You're like, good. I got a lot of back
and Mr. Juggernaut should hang out, bro. They should. I mean, he was rolling with Martin Slickus, right? He was rolling with Thor Bjornsson, right?
Yeah, dude. Did you watch those videos of like Thor rolling? It's so weird. Who did
whatever.
I
don't, man.
Gordon and someone.
Look, I don't care. So the thing is, I shouldn't say it. The problem is, I love. This is the worst thing, right? So I hate bullies, but I love to bully a bully. This is a sad irony, right? In the same way, I don't.
Who bullied you? Who are you going to try to roast here?
Well, Gordon is the biggest bully in jiu-jitsu. No. But I'm saying is, like, when you speak someone's name, you give it power, right? So it's important. If you really don't like someone, you shouldn't talk about them.
True.
The problem is, I can get on one and I can just rant, but this doesn't make me any more credible or any good. Me hating on people and throwing shade on people is just the worst aspect of who I am. The best thing I can do
is good recognition of yourself.
No. It's like, it's way better for me to give credit where credit due. I'm going to say right now, Juggernaut AI is good. It's good.
It's a solid program.
It's fucking good. And they're good. The guy, he knows what's up. He's a smart dude. So he's, in terms of like the world of strength conditioning, he's like a 5-stripe black belt, and I'm like a lowly purple belt, right? So,
well, don't shit on your own project.
In the real world, I'm a fucking black belt in jiu-jitsu, bro, and you're the lowly purple belt. So what world are we fucking in? We're in Jiu-Jitsu world, motherfucker.
My world.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, and the thing is, there's plenty of people out there in the world of Jiu-Jitsu who have no pedigree in S&C. That's fine. Plenty of people in the world of S&C who have no pedigree in Jiu-Jitsu. But if you want to cross it over and you want to talk about who's trained what athletes and how you break it down, on paper, I have like very minimal qualifications, but my lifetime is dedicated to understanding and better helping people get out of injury, get strong, and absolutely just stay on the mats. Because here's the misconception, I believe. We're all going for peak performance. But actually, peak performance is an illusion. Not true. No. This is what people will often say, like, how do I get really fit for the comp? Or how do I cut weight for this? And, right? But in truth, it's about optimum. It's like what can be sustained.
Well, and it's individualized.
Yeah.
Like, you got to control your own recovery, dude. You're different than me. I'm different than the next. Like, everyone's got to control their own. Each person's performance is going to be very different based on how they take care of themselves on the road there.
Oh, man, 100%. And I think ultimately your understanding of yourself is part of the journey, and a lot of people just don't know that.
I think that's why jiu-jitsu is so freaking valuable, to be honest, is it teaches each person a lot about that.
Well, it does over time. Yeah. But I think the hard thing is people go to jiu-jitsu and they think, I'm relying on the coach. The coach will tell me what to do. But the coach is focused on the whole class. So unless you're at a small gym in a more rural area or something, you may not get that kind of engagement. And there's so much about jiu-jitsu which is not explicitly, it's not told to you, that you actually have to work out over time. Like, so much of my biggest insights have come from putting pieces together and then forming a conclusion for myself. But that's because I'm an obsessive nerd. If I was just a meathead, I wouldn't have worked that out.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So, look, man, I think the biggest challenge that I see, there's a couple, but the first one is learning for jiu-jitsu is not uniform, and also it hasn't properly been there's no formalized approach and there's no hack. So, for example, learning code. There's Khan Academy and there's coder boot camps, and there's all these things on how you can learn how to code quicker so you can use it as a skill in your job, right? This hasn't been done for jiu-jitsu. Like, why does it still take 10 years for people to really get around the requisite skill, right? Actually, it shouldn't take 10 years if you're very focused. Now, there are some people out there who go super hard and they say, oh yeah, I can get a black belt in 6 years or 5 years or whatever. But then that's just more like a dick swing ego thing. Like, oh, I got it so fast, right?
Yeah, I don't know. The quickness seems silly to me.
No. But the reason why I mentioned the quickness thing, and this is more around apprehension and understanding. This isn't about being a world champion and, oh, I got my black belt in 5 years. We've only got 100 years on the planet, if you're lucky. So why would you spend 20 years doing something when it could only take you 10 years? Like, I'm not saying getting there faster is better, because the quickness of apprehension doesn't equal quality of retention. Play that back. Essentially, if you are trying to get good at something, people's processes are different. But if there is a method of attaining and retaining information and then applying it, that's what you should do. So finding out how you learn is one of the key components of getting good at jiu-jitsu. Once you understand the best way, the fastest way that you learn, and applying that to the knowledge, that's what you must do. And most people never do that.
Right. How do you instill that to your students? Because you guys operate an academy now also out of Jungle Brothers, right?
Yeah. So there is. I don't teach the program at Jungle Brothers anymore. I stopped at the end of last year, but I still go and train there and everything like that. Really, it's about the instructor understanding the student. So understanding a person's learning style, like I learned this at university when we were learning like cognitive development and just a child's psychology relevant to school and learning. And, you know, some people are visual learners. Some people are kinesthetic learners. Some people are like very literal, so they have to write it down. Some people are audio visual, so they got to watch a video. So I think ultimately, one second here, we're just having a technical difficulty.
You're good.
Give me 1 second. But no, man, because most people don't think about learning styles, it's actually instructors, like my first instructor, Peter Devine, credit to him, right? He helped lay the foundation. He wasn't necessarily the best teacher because he's like, if you don't learn the way I teach, you're an idiot. Well, no, you're just a limited teacher. Like,
yeah,
I learn differently, dude. So also he only believed in close guard and half guard at best. So when I try to bring up X guard and say, oh, there's this guy called Marcelo Garcia, he's apparently really good. Nah, none of that shit. Nah.
It's like the archaic
Why
highway.
Would you block knowledge? It's the same approach with some people, like not accepting leg locks as part of the game, you know, like blocking that. It's really, there is no good reason as to why you would try and block knowledge. It just makes no sense. And don't get me wrong, we all have a degree of, say, cognitive dissidence, right? Because we learn something and it doesn't match well with our worldview, so we just kind of park it and don't want to see it. But ultimately, when you're getting fucking strangled, you need to work it out. Like, you've got to make a decision very quickly. When it's costing you your ligaments and permanent disability, that's what's on the fucking line. So that's pretty crucial for you to shorten that learning loop up. And what we're seeing more and more is that people coming to jiu-jitsu are not 21. People coming to jiu-jitsu are 30.
Right. Oh.
The most important thing is that if you're coming to jiu-jitsu later in life, it is so crucial that you really understand how you learn and then look after your body. Because this is the only way that you are going to stay in the game and enjoy it. If you don't know that you are potentially putting yourself at risk of semi-permanent disability, is big trouble, you know?
Yeah, you see a lot of foolishness on unwillingness to tap, stuff like that, like grunting it out just to try to be a hard ass. When like, dude, if you, let's say someone's arm-barring you, right? And you're resistant and you're just trying to grind, and it's a fucking training session, dude. It's not a world championship. It's a training session with your teammate, and you're not letting it go because of ego or whatever. And that elbow pops, the likely one, just hope that you're a skilled practitioner in the gym. You have a good physical therapist. You got good healthcare, whatever, which 90% of people in jiu-jitsu don't. So what's going to happen? You're going to try to rehab that thing yourself, and guess what's going to happen the next time someone arm bars you? It's going to happen again. It's going to be worse. How many times can you do that before your arm's just completely fucked? So it's in your best interest to don't be a bitch about it, but tap early enough to keep yourself healthy.
But this is the hardest thing, right? Because there is an associated like toughness. There's an associated toughness thing, which is like, oh, don't, you know, like just accept what's going on. And don't say anything, and like it's a weird jiu-jitsu psychology of you.
But here's the frustrating part. There's some truth to it too, which is annoying. Like for me personally, in my head, I've been in situations where I should have tapped and I hurt myself because I didn't.
Yeah.
But I don't want to give myself that out where I start giving up early, you know, like
it's a fine line. Weird. Like I feel you, but this is maturity too, right?
True.
The problem is it doesn't matter what age you are. When you come to jiu-jitsu, you're a jiu-jitsu baby, or you're like a jiu-jitsu teenager. Like, oh, I don't want to. Like, no, right. I would never tap. Right. And this is just not understanding jiu-jitsu, and actually, it's probably not understanding learning.
Yeah.
So we look at it as a physical encounter and as a fight. And okay, cool. But really, if we identify it as a massive, massive skill set, and the best way for you to get better at a skill is to try and fail multiple times and make, incremental adjustments and iterations as you go, then failing is key. So I'm not saying tapping is failing, but if you go, okay, I tried something, I got swept, I try again. There's nothing wrong with failing multiple times. There is a problem if a failure results in like a rage quit of you like smashing the screen of your computer because you can't play again. In the same way, if you're like, I will not quit, and your arm is broken, and then you like literally like tears all the ligaments in your elbow, you really, it's self-defeating. And so you can be all proud about it, but you're a fucking idiot. Like, in truth, if you were sincere about improving, you would tap. And no, that's not weak. And really, it's important for the coach to really communicate this and really drum this into students to say, yo, it's cool, tap. Like, it's not actually giving up. It's admitting I can't get out of this or I can't go any further.
It's just like in the gym when you feel like an injury developing, there's two types of people. There's like people that actually know what the hell they're doing and they know that you got to take a step back and rehab that. And there's people that push through it. And then those people tear things, rupture things, pull things. Yeah. And then they're out.
I am both those people. Maybe I'm bipolar. I don't know. Like
Are you an idiot in the gym? Like, despite your knowledge? Like,
no, not at all. No. But what I'm saying is, I'm the kind of person who, like, I have some crazy hip cramp. I can't walk.
And you max out that day.
I will still try and I had food poisoning recently. So I was at my heaviest last week, and I dropped like 6 kilos in 3 days. So. Not ideal. But what I wanted to say is, like, literally after a night of just illness.
Dropping weight.
Yeah, dropping weight all night. I got up the next day and I was, like, dizzy as hell. And I was like, I think I can go to work today. I was like, I can't drink coffee because I'm so dehydrated and I'm messed up. Maybe I'll just have a little cup of tea. I don't really drink tea. So I just had, like, a cup of tea. I had a couple sips and I was like, man, it's going to be a big day. We're going to do the podcast and we're going to do content. I got to train people. I was like, maybe I should have a bite of banana, see how that goes. And I like had one little bite and I was like, okay, this is all right. Had second bite and then just all over the kitchen table, man. And my mum walked in and she was like, I guess you're not going to work today. And I was like, no. So that's one of those things, man. Like, I think when you've conditioned yourself with a certain psychology of I have to, this can work up to a point. But then this is the thing that we don't often get taught, which is the point of diminishing returns, right? There's all these different phrases and frameworks that if you really identify, like if you can cement it into your life as a real example, which is, like, for example, people staying up late the night before an exam to cram, right? That's not really going to work. In the same way, you trying to do cardio workouts 2 days before a tournament, you're not getting fitter. It's not happening.
Lifting after jiu-jitsu.
Exactly. Like, it's just not understanding that thing is not making you better. It's making you worse.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. No one knows that. They're just like, no, I'm getting in the reps. Yeah, your reps are shit. Your quality is shit. You're practicing poor technique. Is that what you're trying to drill? And this is one of the hardest things about jiu-jitsu because, yes, it takes a lot of mental fortitude to just keep, like someone's passing your guard, you're just scrambling. Like, it takes a very, very strong psychology to keep fighting. But the psychology is supported by energy systems, and it's supported by movement and muscles and your skeleton and everything else. So you can have the strongest psychology in the world, right? But if your body won't cooperate, the psychology is almost borderline irrelevant. Yeah. The psychology
or risky, actually.
Yeah, man. I mean, the hardest thing to know is that even though you admire these great champions and these people doing obscene things with their body, like Paul Meow letting his knee get completely ruptured by, Tai Rotolo. Like, you're like, whoa, the knee shouldn't bend that way, right?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Gnarly.
wow, amazing.
Gnarly.
But when you meet the meows, bro, they're like zombies, bro. Like, they're so staggered and disjointed, and you don't actually want to be like that, even though you admire it, right?
Right.
So here's the thing. You have to get really honest with yourself about what you're in it for and why you're doing it, then also what you're capable of. If you can only go to jiu-jitsu 3 times a week, accept that you're only going to get better at that rate. And that's fine. That's actually really good. If you can average 3 times a week, awesome. Most people can't. Some people who do the 5, 6, 2-a-days, all that, they get brutally injured, then don't train for 6 months.
Yeah, and they aggregate less total than you.
En masse over the year, they didn't actually train more. So who's better? You've got to find what works for you. And almost no coach is telling you that, because their business model is built on you train more, the gym does better. It's what's good for the gym. Hey, you should train. Oh, yeah, you hurt yourself. Oh, just roll light. Just come. No, go to the physio. Do your rehab. You know?
I think that we'll start to see more, like, as this sport continues to grow. And I listened to it. I'm not I'm not too cold on your take about, like, the UFC acquiring ADCC. I think that's really interesting. And, like,
yes,
as
people have been hating on that, but okay, I have two.
I'm not, like, agreeing with 100%, but the way that you said it, like, the UFC is privy to what's going on, and the next ADCC is going to at least double attendance than the previous. So their growth right now over the years is like 2000s, legends competing against each other. This last one, and it's going to go like this. I mean, grappling will be at the forefront, and Mo and ADCC, when the check's on the table, what are you going to do? I don't know. I don't know, but
I talked to Mo. I was very lucky. Swindled me this. So a good friend and client of mine, Rob Bates, sponsored. He owns a company called Aurum Plus, and they have a great supplement. And he sponsored Nicholas Merengali
for the past ADCC.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
On the back of his, back of his thing, and they sponsored the event, so they had a booth. He, for various reasons, could not be there. Now, he'd already invited Joey and I to be in the booth with him, like his box seat. And we'd invited some friends from B Team to be there as well, like some Aussies who were training at B Team. And he said, man, I can't be there. Could you take the booth for me? And I was like, oh, I guess. So it became the Bulletproof box. And it became kind of like the Australian Embassy. So Lachlan Giles was in there. We had a bunch of people come through. Victor Estima he came through and hung out, which is nice.
Such a cool dude, man. Victor's so cool.
He's a lovely guy, man. Braulio too. Braulio's a ledge. We had Owen O'Loughlin from...
You have your buddies Craig and Ben in there with you?
Ben was in there. Craig came by, but no, whatever. Like, the funny thing is, Craig and I, just to chat, he came and hung out at the after party. Craig was in our cabana. We had our own private, like, cabana near the dance floor, and he came and hung out with us. Like, I mean, he had his whole entourage, right? Like, he had the whole
but it's all good. It's all good.
No, man. On a one-to-one level, Craig and I get on very well. It's just, if we're on the training mat, it's different. But
anyway, y'all are in the booth.
We're in the booth. Everybody's there, and very fortunately, I was essentially Rob's representative for Aurum, and so I got to talk with Mo directly once or twice, very briefly. He was so slammed. It was such a big event, dude.
Yeah,
and full respect to Mo, they did an amazing job and had a lot of help from the team at Browse. So Browse basically organized all, like, stands for all the different merch and everybody participating with the stalls and everything. And I got to see behind the scenes, and I got to have a chat with the head of who's running ADCC North America. And he had said to me, we're going to be running all these tournaments. We're going to be streaming it live. He didn't say at the time who would be streaming it. He just said, man.
So it was pre-flow.
Yeah.
Well, they knew. You didn't know.
So he said to me, because the person who put me in touch with him said, this guy, referring to me, could sponsor your events.
Gotcha.
And so he's looking at me like, this guy's money. Oh, yeah. So he
Right.
was talking
Well,
it up.
yeah, because you're representing this big supplement company, right? Yeah.
Right. And he's like, love to have you on board. And this is the vision for what's going to happen. And we're going to be the biggest jiu-jitsu competition scene in the world, bigger than the IBJJF, like talking all this stuff. And I was like, wow, okay, interesting. And then when I got a chance to talk to Mo, I said, oh, Mo, it was fantastic to be a part of this event. Would really love to sponsor the next one. He's like, thank you so much. We'd love to have you again. It's going to be bigger, T-Mobile Arena, 40,000 people. He started laying it out for me before he made the announcement on the internet. And I was like, fuck me, that's huge. So that's still Vegas, but 40,000 people.
That's
and
a UFC event.
Yeah.
It's a UFC event.
Yeah. Which
is nuts.
That's literally what I thought, bro.
Yeah.
Because also there was UFC celebrities showing up to this thing just because it's what's popping, right? Like they had the Canelo Triple G fight, the third one, right?
Yeah.
But
see, if you do it during fight week,
yeah,
and everyone's already there,
yeah,
there's so much crossover.
Huge.
And people, dude, everyone's hyped on grappling right now. Like it's because it's a part of everyone's game, and so everyone's kind of like, let's put grappling on our back and.
Yeah, but the thing is,
showcase this.
Mo's talking about trying to get like Chimaev and trying to get Barboza and these guys to just do grappling exhibitions.
Well, they're doing it here and there. Like Chris Weidman's doing the Polaris event.
Yeah.
So they're probably testing,
But here's the thing: the UFC has always historically prohibited UFC fighters from doing other non-UFC related events because they're afraid they'll get injured, mess up their contracts.
Which,
right?
Totally valid.
Yeah.
I'm surprised the Jack Hermanson Chimaev grappling match. Surprised Hermanson didn't get fucking injured.
Sure, but what I'm saying is, if we can look at it's where the money flows, right? That's where the attention goes. Gordon Ryan got the attention. He got the money.
Yep.
Right. You get more personalities like that, like a Nicky Rod, someone talking loud, talking smack, bit of sense of humor, whatever it is, good production. Craig has done very well to align himself with Volkanovski, so he's getting attention as part of his camp. It's all very strategic social media stuff. Getting on Rogan, it's all about getting more media attention, which brings more money, and that's fine. But then it's like, okay, people are like, I had one guy in the comments be like, dude, as if the Sheikh would ever sell the ADCC. He's worth 10 times the UFC. And I'm like, okay, cool. But business is business. And maybe it's a massive headache to run it. And Mo runs it. So I know his father owns it. But it's like, dude, if someone gave you a ridiculous check, it's like selling a company. It doesn't mean Mo wouldn't run it. He would still probably run it. But
well, and dude, this is the thing that frustrates me about silly little comments like that is like, okay, dude, but you're not thinking about what this actually is, right? It is a investment. And so the way investments work is they put money into it to grow this thing. And if someone comes along and says, hey, love what you guys did, I'll pay 2.5 times that for it.
Yeah.
Then now you fucking offload it because then you move on to the next thing. Unless you have, some crazy inclination for grappling.
You could look at it differently, right? I agree with you because I'm really obsessed with startups and how businesses scale, right? Yep. This has been a really important learning for me recently. And you're looking at 3 times earnings, maybe, say. I don't know what the ADCC makes right now, but when Gordon Ryan cuts a 7-figure deal with Flo, you're like, there's some fucking money in this, right?
Yeah, but I wonder that's an interesting thing because Flow runs, they do grappling, they do basically all the D sports. They do ballet, they do cheerleading, they do wrestling, they do all sorts of weird stuff. So you wonder, do they have all these irons in the fire? And now they're going, whoa, Gordon's got a lot of attention. Let's redirect some of the revenue from these different streaming services that we have. Just see what kind of happens. what I think will happen.
Dude, it's not see what happens. Jiu-Jitsu, come on. Jiu-Jitsu is growing like 30 to 40% year on year. It is the fastest growing martial art in the world. Like, it'll be 100 million people in 6 years.
I guess I don't know enough about the growth statistics on it. Like,
No,
it's growing, but it can't be like, it's not bigger than judo. It's not even close to bigger than judo.
Of course not. But I'm saying even at 100 million, like at 50 million, it would be smaller than Taekwondo. There's like 80 million people worldwide who do Taekwondo. And Taekwondo isn't even in the media now, right?
Right.
But what we're talking about is we're talking about advertising dollars. We're talking about all this
there's
stuff,
cash in it, dude. And these guys have social media personalities.
Right. And that's the thing.
It'll incentivize if other athletes. This is how it's going to, and I think this is a good thing. And it's a good thing for things like what Bulletproof for BJJ offers, is now other athletes are going to go, wait, I can make bank if I'm the best? Okay, I'm not just going to show up and roll anymore. I need to strength train. I need to condition. I need to be an elite athlete. I need to get sponsorships and wellness. We need to build like basically a UPI, but for an ADCC, UPI, whatever. And then it levels up the seriousness. Yep. Then, as a viewer, we get to watch more dynamic matches.
Yes.
You get better commentary. So I don't think your take's that bad. I'm surprised that you got that much heat for it.
No. It's just it's not a bold claim, to be honest. It's just you've got to look at the evolution of anything, right? Why would a guy like Jake Paul get into MMA? It's not because he's going to make a bunch of money fighting. He's going to make more money as a promoter in MMA.
Yeah, and then what happens? What just happened? Did you see this with his brother?
Yeah.
Logan's all of a sudden. Logan's drinks like, dude, that's a massive deal. That's a 4 or 5 year now go like this, and you look at all the shit.
It's because people get caught up in the distraction, which is two men fighting each other. And that's not what it is. This is corporate power games, right? And so, look, we're digressing a bit here, but I think when it's all about
this is a jiu-jitsu podcast.
They own the world, man. No, I think. Sorry, guys. I went on a terrible deep dive about corporate America.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Your American riffs are great. They're welcome here. You shit on Tom Brady, not cool. And now you're talking about American capitalism.
Don't. I brought Tom Brady up as the GOAT. I did say that. If you rewind, I did say Tom Brady's the GOAT. If you disagree with me, you come see me. No. I think ultimately, because I've spent the last 4 years trying to better understand the business of jiu-jitsu, because even if you got the best thing in the world, like say you got the best podcast, if you only got 100 listeners, that's hard, right?
Yep.
Exposure is super important. Now, marketing and distribution are almost the same thing. Marketing is a form of distribution, information distribution, not just like physical product distribution, right? You could have the best sandwiches in the world, but if only the locals know about you, you're not making money, right? It's just what it is.
Yep.
It's so important now that people who are in the business of jiu-jitsu understand that this distribution is going to get way more competitive. We're going from a blue ocean to a red ocean, as they say in business, because you know what comes through next? Nike. You know who comes through next? Red Bull. Like, that's who you're competing with. It's not going to be like, oh, yeah, we sponsor this kid. It's not going to be like that anymore. We're very fortunate. We're still at this infancy phase where you can still talk to a famous person in jiu-jitsu and have a convo with them.
Yeah.
In the future,
dude,
they're going to be like Federer. It's not going to be possible.
Yeah. I know. Imagine in tennis. Let's say you wanted to start you love tennis and you wanted to have a tennis show.
Yeah.
Good luck talking to anyone who's on a commit. Like, good luck even finding the contact of their assistant. You can pull up your phone.
He always seems to want to talk to everybody.
Who?
Jim Courier. Sorry, he was a tennis star.
You pull up your phone, and we're in a special time right now where you can reach out, and people are humble enough, and there's not enough barriers up to where you can get a conversation going with someone like, to be able to sit down with Victor Estimo was to be able to sit down with you. This happens because of social media, just reaching out and saying, hey, but you're right.
Oh, 5 years time, bro. Good luck.
Dude, imagine.
This is happening again, I'm telling you now.
Imagine Red Bull goes, hey, guys, this jiu-jitsu thing's getting a lot of traction. We need to pump some money in it, right? It's one of the sports we don't represent. So they do. They throw a Red Bull logo on a couple athletes. They pay those guys $200,000 a year. These guys are like, holy shit, I'm making like real money, short-term contract. And then Red Bull goes, you know what? We need more media in this space. Let's get Marcelo Garcia and let's get Gordon Ryan. And we're going to put a podcast together and we're going to pay them each $500,000. And then they just fucking obliterate the podcast environment because they just have capital to throw at stuff that drops in the bucket. So you're 100% right. It is a unique time pre-super explode T-Mobile Arena for a grappling event.
Yeah.
Dude.
It's next level, dude. And that's the thing that when people hear me talk, I think for the best part, like I haven't had coffee for 3 days, so I'm at my calmest.
God bless your soul.
I'm at my calmest.
Yeah.
I'm not usually this calm. I'm not intense about anything. You know, like the things I talk about, I really care about, right? I really care about jiu-jitsu. This is my concern. Jiu-jitsu right now is like skating in the 90s. It's mad. People love it on a grassroots level. It's fucking mad. People love it. People are into it. Their kids do it. You know, like it's not mainstream yet, but we've just had the X Games. People are like,
the first one.
Tony Hawk. Oh shit. But then, you know, out comes Tony Hawk, you know what I mean? And then everybody's playing it on fucking PlayStation. And then, oh, what's that? We're having the X Games street sports. And then Niger Buddy Easton comes in, and that's the Rotolo brothers. And then, you know, like, you know, then we got the reality TV shows based around skating and all this nonsense, right? Nike
Dude, imagine like a Ryan Sheckler reality series, but with like Cole Abate or something, and you'd be like,
Cole's boring. It'd probably be about the dysfunctional family that is B Team. It'd be more funny, you know. But what I'm saying is, we are about to hit that, and people just can't see it, and I can see it. We are on that wave right now. Now, the thing that I care about is not the top end of the sport. I don't give a fuck about those guys. Those guys will be fine. They're all going to die of heart attacks in 10 years anyway because they're pumping so much steroids. Doesn't matter. Essentially, what I care about... What? What did you say? I didn't start a motherfucker. You heard what I said.
I'm like, yo, the femur...
The trend is blocking your hearing, dog.
The hip to knee, quadricep, hamstring, that dude's trap. It goes from the middle of his head to like the other side of his shoulder.
Who's this?
Galvao.
Oh, Andre, yeah.
Dude, he's just got like bricks on his head.
Look, someone's got to do the meme where they cut in Gordon, Andre, and then like Phil Heath, and then like
and Kai Green.
Yeah, just cut them in there, and they're not going to look out of place.
You know what? You don't want to bring into jiu-jitsu? USADA. Keep USADA out.
No. Oh, I said this the other day, dude. Here's the other thing, which is going to be funny because I'm talking shit about it now. Now is Pride. Right now, for the UFC, is Pride 2000.
Oh, like pre-USADA.
Yeah, because...
Like Sakuraba and all those ones.
Yeah, bro. We're talking Ricardo Arona.
Yeah.
We're talking Rampage in the day. Power bombing dudes. Yeah. We're talking soccer kick, Vanderlei to the head shit. That's what I'm talking about. So the
TRT
old guy,
Vitor.
Yeah, real Vitor.
The only version that matters.
That's right. The only version that who cares. Here's the funny thing, and I sound like an old guy. I am old, but I'm not that old. But the guy's like, man, fuck the UFC. Pride was the shit. You know, like those guys.
Yeah.
You know, like we're talking about Mirko Krokop and Shaolin spinning back fist
head
nonsense.
Kicks,
crazy shit.
Man, I used to.
So good, right?
Krokop head kick
Fedor,
knockout.
Fedor
all
versus
time.
Big Nog.
Yeah. Steroid league.
we are in the pride era of ADCC, because if the UFC does buy the ADCC, drug testing will come in, and then it'll be a sad thing. It won't be the circus it was.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
It won't be the freak
really
show.
interesting.
I bet you by the time it's more mainstream, it won't be, it won't be freak show level stuff. It'll still be big dudes, but it won't be the same.
Yeah, it's gonna.
But here's the thing. We have to consider this. The most important people in jiu-jitsu are the people who do jiu-jitsu. It's like looking at the UFC and being like, yo, Conor McGregor matters. No, he doesn't matter. The kid who's 16 and says, I want to do a martial art or a sport, that's the person that matters, right?
Well, they both matter. Conor is important to the growth of the sport.
Let's be clear. Conor McGregor doesn't matter.
You don't like Conor McGregor, but he matters.
He's the worst person in the world, other than...
Yeah, he's not a great person, but he's helped create an environment in which that growth can happen, for sure. You can't discredit
Conor McGregor
that.
Has exemplified the douchebaggery of society.
For sure. I agree with you 100%. So that doesn't make him bad for the sport.
In that regard, he can drop dead and die, and don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's a scumbag.
Yeah, okay.
Like, he's a bad representative of, like, what an athlete. He's not Anderson Silva.
No, but I'm not saying Anderson's...
But he was good for the growth of the sport.
I don't really care about that. The sport was grown anyway.
Fair.
DSP was pretty good for the growth of the sport too, and we ain't talking shit about that.
Yeah, because GSP is a fucking G, man.
Too, but we're not talking about that.
Yeah, but GSP also didn't, like, globally isn't as recognized as Conor McGregor.
GSP was as big a star as there could be. He's one of the most favorable stars of all time.
Totally agree. But there's people that literally don't know anything at all. You don't even know that mixed martial arts is a thing, and they know who Conor McGregor is.
They're the people who jump in and they go, I love Conor McGregor. Oh, he's
right,
not winning.
But that's eyes on a sport. That's eyes on a sport, though.
These are just tourists. They're not even...
Agreed. But tourists are eyes on the sport. It helps
They
growth.
make money for the UFC, and that's different to actually growing the sport. These are just drunk dudes at bars yelling, stand them up. I don't give a fuck about these people, man. So
yeah, me either.
About what Conor McGregor has done for the sport of MMA is not a good influence.
I don't know. I disagree.
Okay, let's reframe this. Do you think Conor McGregor is a good influence on MMA?
No, I already told you. I like his character, him as a person. I don't think he's a good representative. Punching old guys in bars, not a good look, dude.
Exactly, but that's what I'm saying.
But Conor McGregor, double championing, growing the sport, you can't discredit that. His crossover into boxing created all this pullover.
Total net revenue for the UFC?
I think he increased total views for the UFC.
Yeah, so what? He made the UFC more money.
That's valuable.
Has it grown the sport? What do you mean grown the sport?
More eyes on a sport create more intrigue to get involved, and that puts people in at the bottom. It's like jiu-jitsu. They're going to see Gordon Ryan that don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, think it's interesting, and they're going to go to their local academy and start. You want that happening.
I don't think that's true.
But that's okay to disagree.
I think we can disagree, and we can switch up and focus on who is important, which is the teenager who gets involved with martial arts.
Agreed.
Right? And the dad who hasn't done sports for years and goes, you know what, I'm going to get involved in this.
Join his son.
And then his kids get involved. And, all these things, that's who I care about ultimately in the jiu-jitsu journey. Whether someone comes to it via MMA or they do kickboxing, then they do jiu-jitsu, the only thing I really care about is the people who end up changing their lives in a positive way through this journey, right? Which I feel, for me, jiu-jitsu had a very positive effect on my life, and I'd love to see it have really positive effects on more people's lives. So the more people do jiu-jitsu, the better, right? So, and
you put your money where your mouth is, because you have a gym that supports that, a school that supports that, and an app that supports that, and a show that supports that.
Yeah, man. Dude, I wrote a kid's book because I want more kids to do jiu-jitsu, right?
Right.
So it's literally called JiuGo, The Power of Jiu-Jitsu. That's the book.
Love it.
You know what I mean? The game is called JiuGo. It's literally a jiu-jitsu card game, right? Yeah. So the thing is, I have bet the house on jiu-jitsu. This is the thing I care about the most in the whole world. So when I see people who I believe are like false prophets, dick riders, or pretenders, I want to call them out because I feel they represent the culture poorly.
Right.
And I will stand behind that because I care about people getting the most out of jiu-jitsu. I don't care about people making money off jiu-jitsu who don't actually care about anyone else but themselves. That's where I have a problem. So
where do you see that most?
Okay, here's the tough thing. Jiu-jitsu is an individual sport, right? So even though you have teams, ultimately it's the individual because it's a solo. You got to
It's a journey for yourself.
Yeah. The difficulty is because so much of what drives social media is what's sensational, what's controversial. Like I was saying before, you were saying just pre-show, right?
Yeah.
If we start talking about like eat your vegetables, drink your water, go to sleep on time, take your vitamins, kids, like
nobody wants to hear it.
Unless you're the Hulk, Hulkmania.
Or it's some stupid top 3 ways to reduce the blah blah blah, or like 5 best this to do that.
Yeah. Look, ultimately, dude, as much as I admire and understand the game, because I can definitely respect what Gordon Ryan has done to build his name. This is separate the art from the artist. He is great at jiu-jitsu. He is not the best person. So I wouldn't want to copy his example. The problem is if you're just a young kid, you're like, man, to be successful, I got to be like Gordon Ryan. Well, I don't think that's necessarily true. Right. So it's difficult because there's not that many public voices out there saying, oh, hang on, why don't you talk about your supplement stack? Like, why don't you talk about all your steroids, dude? Because maybe you wouldn't get the same level of sponsorship. Maybe you wouldn't get the same level of respect. There it is. Why don't we all talk about that? Because maybe it spoils the whole party. I don't know. But here's the hard thing. Those guys are grown men. They're going to make their decisions, right? But young kids don't know better. And the problem with social media as it stands is we get, it's hard enough that women get body
fucking
sport.
Liver King, Andrew Tate, both those scumbags. That's the shit. That's that in a T, dude. It's kids are at home. Here's these fuckheads giving bullshit advice that's straight up just not true, actually. Just straight up false. Just straight up con. And what they don't know. How do they know? They have no idea. No way.
And look, I the thing is, I'm not saying, oh, I got the gospel or I'm the authority or anything, right?
Yeah.
But, I'm an open book. If you ask me what I eat and what I do every single day, I can tell you I'm very open. Like, I live a very boring life so that I'm healthy, I'm fit, I'm strong, and I have the capacity to do the things I care about. And most people, it's not Instagrammable stuff.
Right.
Oh, I'm taking my magnesium before I go to bed at 8:30 at night, getting up at 4 a.m. Like, no one wants to really hear that shit.
Describing my day in a tea.
Big lifts, or they just want to see you body slam someone on the mat or whatever. And I get all of it, but all I want to do is challenge the kind of mainstream, the mainstream narrative within jiu-jitsu, which is what I'm seeing currently is that no-gi jiu-jitsu is becoming the most popular form of jiu-jitsu. I believe that. I don't believe it is the most, but it's on track. Last ADCC was the biggest event I'd ever been to, and it was the most spectacular. And I believe, as we were saying before, it's only going to get bigger. This means you've got young kids sitting in the stands, right? Who are they in 7 years? Like, look at Tainan Dalpra, right? Tainan, you look at him when he was just this little fuzzy kid, and now he's the most dominant middleweight, and may be the most dominant middleweight ever in the gi, right? Yeah. That's what it could be. He's just styling on dudes. Actually, it's funny. I'll say this here, but I got to mention it on our own podcast. Tainan totally took a page out of Gordon Ryan's book. So if you note, last year, Tainan was doing a lot of arm bars. Like, I've been studying Tainan. I study all the good guys, right? And that was totally Huffa Mendez, like arm bar everyone, right? So I think Guy Mendez said to him, hey, bro, we've got AOJ plus. We really want to release that back attack system. So this tournament, you're only allowed to take people's backs and choke them. Yeah. Okay?
I wouldn't be surprised.
And dude, he styled on everyone, took their back and choked them. And literally the day after Europeans releases Tainan Dalpra's back attack system, $180, get it up here.
That's wild too, but to have an athlete where you can actually do that.
He's a fucking jiu-jitsu cyborg.
Yeah. Programmed robot.
Back attack.
Yeah.
But that's what Gordon did with Flo, right? He just did that thing where he just did a ton of escapes and he's like, now go buy my escapes DVD. Yeah. Right?
When's the James Tomlinson DVD coming out?
People don't want to hear that. They don't want to see
You're like,
that.
It's behind a paywall, bitches. It's on the website.
You know, look, I think ultimately both Joe and myself are very accessible. If you want to contact us, you can contact us. We did release the app, so there is that's where all our new content is, and we'll be bringing out some new programs this year. So I'm going to be releasing a modified strongman training for BJJ, which is stuff people can do from home or a commercial gym. We're going to be releasing some neck strength and grip strength stuff, and then we'll be looking at our pure bodyweight program as well. So there's a lot more stuff to come, but we've still just got to overcome the technical delivery,
the pains that exist. Well, James, we'll be sure to link everything in the show notes for everyone that's listening. You can find out the podcast, the YouTube show, the app, the website, which just got redesigned and pushed over, Jungle Brothers, the gym, and then all the contact points. And we scratched the surface on like a couple things. We're gonna have to do another episode in the future.
Feel bad because I feel like we didn't actually answer any of your questions. It's like every time you ask,
I love this.
Barefoot?
Well, episode part 2. Why James trained barefoot that day. No, man, this has been a blast. I love these conversations. It's jiu-jitsu is something that it's a big part of my life. It's a big part of my well-being, and it's really fun to be able to sit down and share that, and with people that have chosen to live this as their life. Like you've done this for a long time. It is who you are, and I love sitting down and being able to be a part of these conversations. So thank you for doing this. Next time we're gonna get both you and Joe on together. It would be rad. So yeah, thank you, brother.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully the people can get something out of it.
Absolutely.